She's like a micro expression god, ladies and gentlemen.
Goddess.
Goddess. Specializes in it. So if I looked at her wrong or did anything weird, she's like, what's going on? I was walking a tightrope here, ladies and gentlemen, in our relationship. Welcome everybody, my name is Max.
And I'm Felicia.
And this is the Love Liberation podcast. We're going through a rebrand right now. At first it was called the Understanding Experience podcast, but Understanding Experience is more our philosophy. And it's going to be our media branch. So our YouTube is going to be Understanding Experience and the podcast is going to be called Love Liberation. We're also starting a blog. So yeah, exciting times.
And today we are going to talk about the masculine and feminine dynamics and how it really shifted in our relationship and where we started. And yeah, just our journey around the masculine and feminine energies.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Let's get started. Well, first it's maybe good to understand what the masculine and feminine dynamics are, because the feminine and the masculine dynamics are just separate energies that you can see in everything. It comes back in everything, literally. And it doesn't have anything to do with your gender or your sexuality. It's just a different flavor of energy, different qualities. So the masculine is more the one that takes charge and is the leader, is the one that holds space. It's the one that takes action, that is really focused on their mission and
external things. The
external, the outer. And the feminine is more the internal world, the emotions, her intuition, her feelings. She's the one that just receives and gets penetrated by life and just experiences life with all of her senses, with her taste, her smell, her touch, everything. And the masculine is also the one that's being of service and gives to the feminine.
So why is this interesting for the people at home? What do people gain by understanding these energies more?
Well, the masculine and feminine energies are everywhere, like I said, and we all have the masculine and the feminine within us. And to understand in which energy you feel most like yourself and you feel most fulfilled and you feel like you can be best of service to the world, whether that's in a more feminine energy or in a more masculine energy. If you can really understand that, then you can actually start to live up to that and you can actually start stepping into the person that you actually want to be, and that is in your highest alignment and in the highest alignment of all. So for a personal level, it's really important to understand it. And it's also because if you understand yourself, you'll understand the dynamics in the world. And you can see it, you can recognize it in other people's relationships, in nature, in wherever you can recognize it. And you will just get a greater understanding of how the universe and how the world works, which is always nice to have.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that if you really want to live to your highest truth, it's nice to understand what qualities are associated with these different energies and where you feel most comfortable.
Exactly, yeah. Because then if you really understand, for me, for example, I always walked from a masculine path, but once I truly understand the dynamics and I started to heal my feminine and masculine wounds, I started to realize that I actually had a feminine core and that I felt most at home and felt most happy and fulfilled and in my heart when I was actually in my feminine energy. And from that place you can create so much. And if you fill up your own cup by stepping into the energy that actually feels good to you, then you're able to actually serve the world and actually make change. And you can approach it from a different way because the feminine also attracts and the masculine takes action and goes out into the world. So for me, when I'm trying to build a business, it's more about my energy and how I show up in this world, in my day-to-day, and that will create the clients that I need or the opportunities that I need. And a masculine goes out and seeks it for himself.
He goes on sales calls and he just Googles every business that he can call to just kind of forcefully move through the world and gather all the people that he needs for his mission. So It's very outer focused, and a feminine is more if she lives to her highest truth and follows her intuition, she becomes a magnet that attracts the right people and clients and whatever qualities you want in your life.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you really understand what feels best to you, then you can change your whole approach on life and your goals and everything you ever wanted. So that's why I think it's important to understand it and to integrate it in your life.
Yeah. And in this society, there's a huge bias towards masculine action and the masculine way of being. And I feel like a lot of women in the workplace and like in general are pushed in that masculine role. So it can be very helpful to get a different perspective on how you could also live your life. And I feel like that there are a lot of women who are forcefully trying to fit into the mold, and where they actually don't feel that comfortable. And so it might be helpful that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about women, but it's not just only for women. It's also about men,
Definitely.
but just with a feminine core. But when we talk about women as a feminine, it's because most women have the feminine energy, most of the feminine energy within them. Like everyone has a balance. For some, there's more masculinity. So for some, more femininity. For some, it's more a balance. But most women have feminine and most masculine, or males have masculine energy. So that's why we say it that way.
Yeah. Actually, how I started my business was in a feminine way, because I just screamed off the roofs that I like doing video, and like people came to me asking for, oh, can you make a video for me? I see you're so passionate about this, and I would love to, I need a video. So
and
please make a video for me.
And you've always been very charismatic, which is also literally like pulling people into your energy, pulling people into, they're just interested in you and who you are, and they like your energy, and that's why they want to keep working with you. And they, when they get someone to them who asks for a video, then they say, hey, I know someone, it's a really nice dude. So that's also the feminine approach of attracting instead of actually going out to make it happen.
Definitely. Like I never really did or get something out of pure hardcore sales and cold calling. It was just always coming natural to me. People came to me, and it's pretty nice actually. So I think it's also valuable for masculine people to get in touch with their feminine core, so they can attract it both on a masculine level and on a feminine level. Because when you're totally in your body and you feel that excitement about your business and whatever, you have that magnetic pull towards you. And if you double that up with cold outreach and sales and whatever, you have the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. And how, like, you started with the feminine approach, and how do you think that happened for you? Why do you think you were in your feminine for all those years? Because you are a masculine core. So I've always been very sensitive. I have ADHD, and that's often associated with a very sensitive person. And in my home situation, like where I grew up, it was I was pushed to always talk about my stuff if I was going through something. Like the way I processed those emotions was by talking about it with my parents. There was a very strict tendency towards honesty in my that was really valued in our Really valued.
Really valued. So I always took that up as like I have to talk about my shit, and that was the way I went through it.
Yeah. Even to the point where if you felt something and you didn't talk about it, you started to feel guilty because you felt like you needed to talk about it.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. There were moments where you where something was between us, where you got triggered by something and it brought up some emotions, and you felt like you needed to communicate that with me because otherwise it wasn't fair to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah. I now know that it's sometimes also for the better to just keep it to yourself and process it alone, because when you have no filter and always say what's on your mind, like just talk about everything that's going on in your head and just kind of mindlessly expressing what's going on inside your head, it can also lead to problems. Because I had a thought that like I was doubtful about my relationship with you, and every time that came up, I just voiced it out, and you like that creates so much distress for the other person, because normally when you are doubting about such an integral part of your life, you think about it twice before you voice it to the other person.
Yeah, that didn't really happen for us.
No. But yeah, on the other side, you could trust that it was real and it was living inside of me. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and I knew that you were always just honest.
Yeah.
I could trust what you were telling me, and that's so important to me. So yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. Like, no, let's not get that wrong. But for us personally, it definitely was for the best, because I feel like I was able to understand you and to be compassionate, and we could communicate with each other.
Yeah. Definitely helps with communication, but it kind of triggers a lot too.
Triggers the hell out of you. Yeah. But okay, so you grew up where you needed to tell the truth and needed to speak up and talk through your feelings.
Yeah. So I learned to be expressive in that sense. I learned to express my emotions, which is very hard for a lot of masculine cores. So, and now I'm learning to think about what I say, and yeah, I'm learning to live more as my core.
Yeah. And do you think only the home situation was a thing for you while you were feminine, or were there also other reasons?
I think my father has kind of a real integrated masculine energy to himself, and my interaction with my father was often that I would take the more leaning back, just observe what he's doing and how I can assist with some stuff he is doing. And like I feel like that dynamic really made me respond to masculine energy in a way that I was not overpowering. I learned to not overpower it, but just to be supportive and nurture that energy.
Yeah.
I think that's why when there is a masculine presence somewhere, I tend to fall into the nurturing, supporting personality.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's really because for a lot of guys, it's also that they need a masculine representation for them to even know what masculinity is and to step into that. But for you, it really switched your dynamics back into the feminine, because he was masculine and then polarity happens where you step into the feminine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So my dad has a company, and there's a lot of physical labor attached to that. And when I went out with my father to help him with his business, we went to construct some terraces and stuff. And then I was always helping. I was always supporting. And that, like, my dad always took the lead, also with work on the house. And every time I went to that dynamic, we switched to that dynamic. And I was just like, show me how to do it or tell me what to do. And so, yeah, I think it grew like that.
Yeah. And you have ADD, which is also a really chaotic feminine energy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How have you been shifting your energy along the ways or along the years?
Trial and error.
Like most.
Yeah, so just being feminine when I wasn't supposed to be feminine, or supposed to be, that's a weird word, loaded word. But like in situations where...
You could have been masculine.
I could have been masculine and take the lead. I took the feminine approach, and that burned me in the ass sometimes.
How?
Well, with us, like with that doubt I was talking to you about. And also in business, when I was hired by a company to do a video on a store, I was in a conversation with the owner, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just trying to learn here, and I just started out, and they were like, what the fuck, why did they hire this guy? He's not a professional at all, you know. But I was like in that learning mode and just getting some experience under my belt, and but that was just going on inside my head. And yeah, that's not the best
sales pitch.
Sales pitch. Yeah, I'm just learning and I'm just getting some experience. So yeah, that was my last job for that company. They never hired me again. Yeah. Really funny. So that's what bit me in the ass.
But what tools did you use to consciously try to shift your energy from more feminine to masculine in our relationship and in your personal life, in your business life? Are there certain tools that really helped you out and are still working for you?
I think in general, it's just about being more self-conscious. Not in the bad way, but just being more conscious of what you do, why you do it, and how you do it. It's just the huge amount of reflection we have been going through, like talking about stuff and just analyzing what happened, and like that is just a process that makes you so hyper conscious about your own thought processes and how you react to the world and how you interact with others. And that's just like, that makes you so fucking conscious of how you move through this world. And I think the basic tool of being more conscious, so reflecting and really observing your own thought patterns, and then just have the moments where you fucked up, have in your head, like just learning and being conscious of yourself in the moment. That's been the biggest tool. And how do you get more self-conscious is by observing your own thoughts. And how do you observe your own thoughts? It's by practicing meditation. And
or journaling.
Or journaling. That was your way of doing things. Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple, but it just takes a lot of years of just practicing.
Yeah, and for us it was a lot of conversations, but I think if you don't have a partner in crime where you can actually go into all of your darkness and all of your triggers and all of the stuff that comes up, then journaling and doing shadow work is a beautiful way to get aware of your own patterns and your own thoughts and what is actually going on in your being.
Yeah. Just a brain dump.
Yeah.
And then you can see what patterns arise. If you just recycling that thought or that way of thinking, it eventually just pops out and just makes you conscious of what is actually going on.
Yeah. May take a little bit longer than when you actually have someone to talk to and point out the different perspectives, but it will also help. So
I actually never journaled that much because like my way of doing things is just integrating it in the moment, just learning in the moment, that, and just like our conversations help me a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch to you. You started out masculine, or more in the masculine energy, and I think everybody's wondering, like all the ladies at home that are that are like put into a mold or feel like they have put up masculine walls or just plain behave in a masculine way, and how to soften and how to be more expressive and how to think less about everything you do and say, and just how did you do it? How are you doing it?
Well, it's still a work in progress. I'm still getting there, but I started off really masculine because multiple reasons, but I also grew up in a family where I needed to be the masculine role and I needed to take care of the people around me, and I felt like I needed to protect myself because the masculine energy around me didn't feel safe to my feminine, where I didn't feel emotionally supported in the way that I needed. And it isn't that my parents didn't try, like I love them to death, they're amazing parents, but they weren't able to be of service to me in the way that I needed it to be seen, to be felt, heard, and actually able to soften in my feminine. So I felt like I needed to step into my masculine myself and needed to protect myself and take care of myself. And this caused me to be an independent woman where I just felt like I just do it all myself. I don't need anyone. I don't need help. Even to the point where I felt like if people did help me, I felt like I wasn't good enough, because that has a whole needing to be perfect energy around it. I felt like I was just walking on a tightrope in a canyon or on a canyon. And for most people who had a stable household where they felt safe and supported and emotionally, physically, and spiritually, then they will feel like they have this net underneath. And even if they fall, even if they make a mistake, they know that they will be fine and they will be safe and secure. For me, it felt like I was walking there all alone. So it felt like I didn't have any support, no safety net, and every step I needed to take needed to be perfect, because otherwise I will fall and I will die. That's kind of the extreme where my ego and my inner child brought it to. So me getting help from someone else felt like I wasn't taking the perfect step and I wasn't taking care of myself well enough. So other people needed to step in. And I really internalized that and personalized that. So my masculine energy really was there. I felt like I needed to do it all by myself. And I didn't want to ask for help or receive help.
And also, like, walking that tightrope, you had your family in your backpack. Right.
Yeah, because
so you're walking this tightrope, and like if you don't take the perfect step, not only you will die.
Yeah.
Your whole family will.
Yeah.
They are in your backpack.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was actually, I felt like I put the responsibility onto myself that I needed to keep my family together and the people I loved alive in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You forced it on yourself.
I forced it on myself. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was very much the emotional side of things, right? Not really the financials or anything else. It was
for
like
me it was the
emotional.
I'm a highly sensitive person, and I'm also a empath, and I was just like I was really sensitive, and if I could feel it instantly if someone wasn't fully present with me and had other things to worry about, and I still have that very clearly.
She's like a micro expression god, ladies and gentlemen.
Goddess.
Goddess. A divine micro expression intelligent being.
Exactly.
She specializes in it. So if I looked at her wrong or did anything weird, she's like, what's going on? I was walking a tightrope here, ladies and gentlemen, in our relationship. So it helped that I was purely authentic most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was really, really sensitive, and I really picked up on all the times that the people in my surroundings weren't present with me and weren't able to hold me in the way that I needed to be held. And that was mostly in the emotional area. But it has also to do with just how society works, and where, like, we need to go to school from 8 o'clock until however late. And after we have went through like high school and all that stuff, college, then we go into work, and we need to sustain ourselves. We need to pay rent. We need to pay for water. And we need to pay for food. So just how the society is built up on going out into the world, taking action, taking care of yourself, penetrating life, and just going after it.
Very
And
individualistic.
yeah, and very masculine. And like everything in my surroundings, like just how society is set up, and my family just made me a really masculine woman or girl in that time.
And this all went subconsciously, right? Because
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the people at home might be thinking like, Jesus Christ, she was so fucking self-conscious then. No, I was like being the glue and stuff. And no, this all went like subconsciously. You placed yourself in that role, and now, like the past years, you only became not the past years. You already knew this for a long time, but like in your adult life, your conscious life, you became aware of that.
Yeah, all the stuff that we are talking about right now, we didn't know in the moment, of course.
No.
It's something that just we have picked on and just really dove into, and yeah, now we understand why we were the people that we were.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I was masculine, and how I'm trying to shift it right now is also through conversation and really healing my masculine and feminine wounds. Because for the longest time, I didn't feel safe in the world, where I built up so much distrust to other people's masculinity that I didn't feel, and also my own, because, you know, as within, so without. So I didn't trust my own masculinity, and I didn't trust the masculinity of the world, of the people around me. So I felt like I wasn't able to soften into anything.
Yeah.
And it started with me actually going into myself, going into my past traumas and into the past pain and heartache, and the times where I didn't felt seen, the times where I didn't felt hurt, the times where I felt like I needed to protect myself, and just really feel it all. That's where it started, and trying to understand where it all came from. And by doing that, I built up this trust towards myself and more safety within myself, because I was actually creating space for myself feel it all and to sit with it all.
Distrust?
No, I build up this trust.
This
trust.
I get it.
Yeah.
So like the distrust you had for the people around you when you were a child, it's like you're looking in the world and you're just observing a masculine presence and you think he's not really stable. Or that's like a subconscious process, so I'll take the lead.
Yeah, it's just
right?
it wasn't even that I observed the other people around me and said, you're not stable enough. Oh, you're too much feminine. That's not even the subconscious process that happened at some point. It was
you
at
just
some
take the
point
lead.
I just made the decision, it's on me. I need to do it for myself. And there's no discussion. It's just me. Somewhere along the way, I made that promise with myself. And I didn't even look at other people anymore. It was just, this is who I am. I'm shifted. This is who I am. I need to take care of me and I need to do it all myself. And yeah, so I didn't even open my heart or open my eyes for the masculine energy for the longest period of time. And through self-discovery and having conversations with you and being triggered immensely by you.
Damn, yeah.
I started to build up more safety within myself and therefore within the world and with you. And I knew that even though our conversations could hurt and in moments where I felt triggered, I didn't feel safe with you, I knew that I was safe with you. And I knew that anything that might come up would be discussable. We will be able to talk about it and let it be held in a place of love.
Yeah, so at a certain point you realized that I was safe in a way, and that you, like all the troubles you went through, that you could share them with me and actually not carry everything yourself.
Yeah, and you would also help me to figure out where things came from, and you kept growing with me and you kept being interested in all of that. And that, like, recently I felt like we've really been shifting the energies, like we've been working on it for years now, but just recently we've been really stepping into the masculine and feminine roles. And for me, a very clear moment was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I realized that a part of me was still holding on to my teenager side that didn't trust the masculine energy and felt like she was being played by the masculine or forced by the masculine, and all these just emotions and energies that were still attached with my teenager self. I realized that I was still holding on to that with you, and as soon as I realized that, I was able to think, hasn't he proven himself? Like
5 years later, ladies and gentlemen.
5, 6 years later, and he's still there. He's still growing with you. He's still holding you, still loving you. Hasn't he proven himself? And that really shifted the energy for me, because suddenly I was able to also let go of all the moments where you weren't able to step into your masculine energy or the divine masculine energy, and I didn't feel safe because of that. I'm more able to let that go now, because I have clarity on the fact that there are so many other things where your masculinity did come through and your safety did come through, and those are just small moments where I didn't feel it. But that doesn't mean that you aren't safe. So that's also a big shift that happened recently, why I'm more able to soften into the feminine. But it's also like, it's as within, so without. So me, like I'm being more comfortable with my feminine as well.
Yeah. Cool. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And things that really...
Like, what... Because you talked about triggers. And what were those moments that... Because we've had a lot of triggers, but what do you think were the triggers that were most... that shifted you the most?
One comes up. That was the first time I truly felt helped by you. Was in Greece, where we had a big fight where it almost went to a breakup. And it was around my own insecurity, where I felt like you didn't think I was attractive, because that was one of the big reasons why you had doubts in our relationship, which now we know had to do with the feminine and masculine dynamics.
Yeah.
But you didn't find me attractive. And in Greece, it came to a point where I don't know how it all started again, but I can remember that I looked myself in the mirror, and for the first time I had a feeling of ugh
You were
towards
disgusted
myself.
by yourself.
Yeah. And that really scared me. And that really scared me.
Yeah.
And we fought about that. But eventually at the end of the night, I don't know anymore how we got to that point, but at the end of the night, you helped me. We were laying in bed and I was crying and I was still going through it. And you started to hug me and I started to open myself up to you. And for the first time, I felt like I was able to soften into your masculinity, and I started crying in your arms. And I can also remember that I told you that this really made me feel so safe. And yeah.
What do you think happened that, like you said, you scared yourself by how you were looking at yourself, and I just triggered you. So like a trigger is always like a situation where something that is already within you gets opened up, like a wound that you open back up.
Well, it's not that I was disgusted by myself previously. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, but like that you get swayed by an external stimulus. If you were totally okay with yourself in the first place, it wouldn't hurt you.
Well, of course. I mean, you were my boyfriend. Like we were in a relationship, so I really cared about what you thought of me and how you looked at me. And that meant that what you thought of me really meant a lot to me and shifted my perspective too. Yeah,
that's totally logical. It's not that like we're all divine already, right?
This is also like 3 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while.
But what I was trying to say is that a trigger. What is a trigger, really? Right? Mm-hmm. It's like a thing that is a wound inside of us that gets pried open with a certain thing that happens, right?
Yes and no.
Okay, tell me about it.
Well, yes, in like most cases, absolutely. But I think it can also happen when you know you deserve better. When you know you deserve better and someone treats you in a way that you don't feel like you deserve, then you can also get triggered. Yeah.
So I think triggers are happening when there is a discontinuation between what you expect of the other person or expect of yourself that is not happening. And that can happen in two ways. Like you have an internal thing that disaligns with the current situation, or the other person that you're talking to actually is not fair to you.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the times when the other person is well intended and actually has you in high regard, and it's often your own stuff, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the times it is your stuff. But as we were just having a little break because the camera shut off, I was also thinking about my argument, and like someone like an enlightened being, they're like very little people are actually enlightened, but if you are like in your higher self, your most highest version of who you could be, then you won't get triggered by anything because you also have the detachments from everything.
Yeah.
Which also means that if you know your worth and someone doesn't treat you that way, you won't get attached to it, and you just say, I'm not accepting this. You can either treat me otherwise or I'm going to leave. Like, I'm not going to accept this.
Yeah.
And you can say that with just so much love and compassion and just present, but you're not actually taking it personally and taking it in. That's another level, and then you don't get triggered by knowing you deserve better or knowing your own worth. But I think for especially in your healing journey, when you first start off with I'm worth nothing, I'm not good enough, I'm all those emotions, and you start healing yourself and you start growing and you start loving yourself and you start to get to know your own worth, that there comes this phase where you just get a little bit fired up. You just know that what you actually deserve, and you don't want to accept any less than that. And you can get kind of hard on your boundaries, and that's an overcompensation that needs to happen in order to step into the fullest version, where you still have the detachment and you just with love and compassion tell someone how they can and cannot treat you. And if they aren't able to treat you in the way that you deserve and you need, then you just take a step back and you let them go, and you don't have harsh feelings towards them. It's just, okay, you're not able to give me that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of...
You always see that the people who are most integrated with their own self-worth have the most strict boundaries. You always see that. And like, if someone doesn't call you attractive, and like, if you're really integrated with I am attractive and I know I am attractive.
And even if you take that away and you just realize that anything anyone ever says is about them and not about you.
Yeah.
Then you don't even have to know you're attractive or know your own worth or whatever, because you just know that it's about the other person and it's just a projection of their perspective onto you.
Yeah.
So the moments where you told me that I wasn't attractive had nothing to do with me.
You weren't attractive in my perspective.
Exactly.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with my attraction and how beautiful I am or not.
Worthy.
Or how worthy or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I wasn't able to feel that.
Yeah.
And now I'm at a way better place. I'm, of course, still working on it. But yeah, I think if you are able to detach yourself from anything anyone thinks or says about you, like still take it in, like still hear it exactly. And just make your own decision on whether you should actually hold it in your heart or just let it go again. But yeah, find the detachment from what other people say and think.
Yeah. How do you think someone creates that healthy detachment from what other people say? Because like everybody on social media just says, well, yeah, just don't care about what other people think. But So many
How?
people just fucking I do, and what can I do about it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the awareness of anything anyone ever says isn't about you. That really helped a lot for me personally, because I was able to actually see that if someone didn't like something about me or felt like I was doing something weird or whatever it may be, then it had to do with themselves and with their own judgments towards themselves. Like if someone says, I don't know.
I don't like you.
Yeah, or judging you because you eat too much or eat too little, or you're sleeping in until 2 p.m. or whatever it may be. If they are judging you about something, that's because they would judge themselves if they would eat too much or too little or stayed in bed until 2 p.m. So once again, that has nothing to do with you. And by actually starting to recognize that and starting to see that it's just their own insecurities, their own judgments, their own unhealed trauma and stuff they still need to go through, I was able to take a step back and just have compassion for them and the things that they are going through instead of taking it personally.
Oh, fuck. You're a person who can't lay in bed until 2 p.m. and feel
And
good
feel
about
good.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, shit, man. I feel sorry for you. I can do that and I feel fine and I love it.
Yeah. And also, like, for me, I have a job at a call center right now. And sometimes I get people on the phone that they get so extremely mad about the tiniest thing, and they just start screaming in my ear because I have like headphones on, of course. And sometimes they even direct it at me, and you can either take that personally or you can just fully detach yourself and almost start laughing about it, or you can have compassion and realize that someone who isn't already stressed out won't be this upset about a rock that's 2 centimeters smaller than on the website. Like, someone doesn't get so lit up and frustrated or angry or mean if there isn't anything else going on in their life.
Yeah.
And as soon as you realize that the way that they are treating you is just a reflection of how they are actually feeling in the inside, you can start to have compassion for them and just have love for them and welcome even those parts of them and just hold space for them. Even in a job like this, I hold a lot of space for those people because I just realized that they need to throw it out just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And if that's through me, then I'd love to do that for them because at least they have a way to just throw it out for a little bit.
Yeah. Once again, it's all about perspective. It's all about seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Also with haters online. Like, if you would actually spend your time on writing a comment, how much you fucking disliked this post of someone, what's going on in their lives that they spend their time on that, right? It's... Why would you do that? That's because there's so much negativity inside of you that you need to express it.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who just hate on other people, it's just their only way of expressing it, right?
Yeah, it's their own pain, their own insecurities, their own sadness. And
also maybe if they get a lot of engagement from that, it's the only way their perspective is seen.
No, it's more, well, yeah, and I think it's more about love. That's the only way they feel like they get some sort of love and attention.
Yeah.
And even if that's a really distorted version of love, it's still a form of love. And people who treat other people, like if you look at bullies, they feel extremely insecure about themselves, and they feel like they need to put other people down so they look better. And that only says about how little they think of themselves, because they feel like all the other people that they are actually bullying are
better,
a threat to them, are better or almost better, and they need to put them down because they need to be the best. Because if they are the best, and they get love, they get appreciated, they get attention from the people around them. And that happens in a lot of different areas in life, not just with bullying, where people treat other people in a way that isn't loving or compassionate, to say the least. It's a way of them actually screaming for love.
Maybe we could elaborate on this, right?
Hurt people.
Yeah.
So, like, in only that statement, there are also a lot of different perspectives where you can start from. Like, there's a lot of good that goes into hurt people, but most of the times it's, for example, if you have a child that doesn't get a lot of love, a lot of attention, a lot of emotional support, and suddenly the child starts to act out and starts to make a mess everywhere in the house, and starts to pick fights with their friends, and starts to, maybe if it's a teenager, starts to do drugs, starts to do whatever. That's all a way of letting themselves be known and asking for love, asking for that attention that they didn't get. And most of the times they don't want it if you give it to them in that moment. But the key is to find a way to get through to them so that they do receive love. And then you will see that suddenly all the acting out, or all the anger, or all whatever it may be, how they express that to the world or to the people around them, suddenly melts away, because what they actually needed was love.
How do they don't want that? Like, if a kid acts out and it makes a mess of his room, or just picks a fight with his brothers, or how do they don't want that attention? Because that's why they do it, right?
It's an anxious attachment where like it happens when you're really small, like when you're like a baby to a child. That's where this process happens in your brain, in your being, where if the mother or the parents don't show up for the child in moments where it's hungry, where it needs physical touch, where it needs someone to play with, or whatever it may be, the child will feel in that moment already the masculine and feminine dynamics kind of switch, where the child, even though a child is fully feminine, like it needs to receive from its parents or caregivers, it feels like it kind of needs to do it itself. And as soon as because it doesn't get it from their caregivers or their parents, so if the mother or father does come in afterwards, then the child doesn't know if it can trust that the mother actually stays. There are even examples on YouTube where you can see this experiment where children with an anxious attachment style were put into a room, and then first the mother was there with them and they started playing with the child, and after a little while the mother went out of the room. And there are different types of attachment styles where you see different reactions from the children. The children who had a safe attachment style just kept on playing and didn't really care because they knew that their parent would come back. And the anxious attachment style, the child would panic and the child would cry and the child would like scream and stuff like that. And then the parent came back and they wouldn't want any affection of them, and they would be mad. They would scream and maybe even punch their parents because they were just mad at the fact that they went away, because they felt so unsafe in the moment that they went away, because they didn't know that if they would come back, that as soon as they did come back, they weren't able to let go yet, because the thing that made them feel unsafe is the thing that comes back now. So do you understand where that
I get
goes
it.
wrong?
Very logical.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just disappoint the kid. Like if it doesn't receive love and attention and care on the moment it desperately needs it, they will get unsure if they will get it again. And if you just if you leave, there is a possibility that they will leave forever. And you low-key disappoint your child every time, because you have disappointed your child, and if you leave, you're disappointing it again.
Yeah. I think disappointing is maybe like, there are different extremes, like disappointing and just traumatizing. Different levels.
Okay. Interesting. And so they don't want the attention because they're still mad. They're still mad because you left. And that translates over in a general unsafety when the person gets older.
Yeah.
And that manifests itself in maybe thinking that it's about you. The kid doesn't get loved, and then the kid doesn't feel worthy, and then the kid gets a low self-image, and then the kid starts bullying others because they feel that other kids around them are better because they have a low self-image.
Yeah, or they have a better home situation and they can be jealous of that. Like there are all different reasons why children start bullying.
One thing, how do we know all this? Because like we're just two people without a degree in this kind of stuff, and we're just talking about this like we know what's going on, but how do we actually be sure of this, right? We know it's true to a certain extent, and I think that's all about us discovering ourselves and seeing patterns in that, and just going through experiences that taught us basic principles that we can apply to all different kinds of situations. But how are we sure of this? We're just seeing the world as it is. Like we can be wrong.
Of course, there's always a chance that we are actually wrong.
Yeah.
Like we're no scientists. We're like, and even scientists can be wrong. Like,
yeah, scientists are wrong most of the time. Like shit gets disproven like almost constantly.
Exactly. So there's always chances that we aren't right, but I think that we have gone so deep into our own traumas, our own pain, our own darkness, and from that we've discovered patterns that we are able to recognize in other people and in the world, and also through plant medicine experiences and stuff like that, where we just were able to see the big patterns that are implemented into everything. And the more I speak with people and the more I share my perspective, the more I realize that what I found out is truth.
Yeah.
Because everyone that I have a conversation with and I ask them questions, or I think, hey, could it be that it's from here or from this moment where it happened? Or they all just look at me and say like, yeah, you're totally right. How did you know that?
How the fuck?
And that's just because we went into our own things. And once again, as above, so below, as without, so within. So yeah, I think that's where we actually, and from our conversations and from other people, from YouTube, from podcasts and books and stuff that we really go into. And I personally also did something in the healthcare, and with the whole psychology thing was also in my studies, and I also did a little bit of psychology afterwards, and it all says the same things.
Yeah, and for me as well, I studied artificial intelligence, and like on university, like what AI basically is like you understand how the brain works. You first look at the biology of things, and then you're going to try to replicate that into a computer. So the basic understanding of how the brain works just gave me a fundamental understanding of like the science behind what we know about the brain. And we know so little, but together with my own experiences, we can draw patterns that we can test into the real world when we talk to people, and often come across situations where it is proven what we think. We gather evidence every time we talk to each other, every time we talk to other people, and when we're wrong, we self-correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a huge huge part of this process of self-discovery is accepting that you don't know shit and constantly looking for places where you could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
to adjust your perspective and to realign yourself with the truth.
But not too much, because that's where I went wrong. Because that really was an insight for me. Trust that you're right and dare to be wrong. Because there came a point for me where I would overanalyze everything to the point where I wouldn't even trust my own intuition, my own knowing, my own experiences, because I would question it to the point where, like, you can question, you never know anything for certain, like you don't know shit. So
yeah,
there will come a point, if you keep asking questions and keep going why, there will come a point where you don't know for certain. And that's where I would put myself to, and then I would feel like, oh, but I don't know, I don't know, and I would not even trust myself anymore, my own experience, my own intuition. So for me, a big lesson was trust that you're right and dare to be wrong. Once again, with the metaphor of walking that tightrope across the canyon, dare to be wrong, dare to fall, dare to make mistakes, but trust that your intuition and the things you've learned are actually right. And if not, then be open to the other perspective and to learn, but trust that you're right.
Also, no, like, it's so difficult because at the one hand, you need to question everything, because like a lot of programming and things you're told when you're a kid, and things the news says, things other people say, people are constantly talking about shit they don't know stuff about, that people, so many people don't know what they're talking about. And that's why it's so fucking difficult to actually form a generic, basic understanding of what existence is all about. And one thing that really helped me is like gathering information and keep that, like, when you have it in your hand or in your heart. Like, when I have my own experience which proves a certain information bite that I gained from a book or gained from a YouTube video or something, I'll just keep that in my horizon until I have an experience that proves that point. so that I'm not. And also when I see stuff online, I just assume they're right, and then just put that the only take it in and see it as truth in my heart if I have evidence from my own experience. I think, and also
And
that
if
it makes sense and
feels like truth.
Yeah.
But that can also be a hard one. Like, it's funny because there was a moment where I was connecting with an old friend again, and I mentioned that if I'm addicted to anything, it's that I'm addicted to finding truth, feeling truth. When someone tells me something, I just check in with myself and I just ask myself, does this feel like truth in my body? And if not, then I let it go. And if so, then I keep it a little closer to my heart until, of course, I get proven for myself. But how would you describe truth to feel like?
I really have the masculine perspective on truth. It's
but if you go into the feeling, because you felt it, you can't deny it. Like, you felt truth.
Yeah.
So how did that feel to you?
Ecstasy. Truth is the moment when something clicks. It's like
everything aligns.
Everything, you have clarity.
Yeah.
Like you assemble so much wisdom from all these different places, and I think it's the moment when you see that pattern. It's like when it's so hard to describe. It's what does it feel like when something clicks?
Yeah. For me, it feels like an openness, like expansion, as if my energy, my being, my heart just expands, and it just, like you said, clicks. It's like
it's the eureka feeling.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just as if everything just goes into line and my being just opens up. That's what it feels like to me.
For me, it just feels like, but then you intellectualize it. It's like when you have a basic web in your brain that you use to move through this world and try to find truth. And those are all these assumptions that you have in your brain that at a certain point in your journey, you've accepted as truth. And when something new clicks, it just perfectly fits in your image that you had of the world already. It just, and then it's almost like you just got a different perspective on stuff, and it just aligns with your current worldview. But
how is that different than having an epiphany?
It is having an epiphany.
But truth doesn't always has to be an epiphany.
Well, it's
like maybe
a micro epiphany.
your moments where you felt truth, maybe like those moments were when you also had epiphanies. But
like when I felt the oneness, like that's the like.
Yeah, but that's also with the epiphany. But what if I told you are a spiritual being having a human experience?
Yeah.
Would you say, without having all your experiences, how does that feel, that statement? How does it feel in your body?
I don't. I've heard this sentence everywhere, but and I know that.
Okay, we're all one.
We're more. Yeah. Okay. that's better.
We're all one.
Because I experienced that. It's just then I just feel love. I just feel connected. I just feel peace. Because I feel like it's not intellectualized in your head. It's like a deeper meaning and a deeper truth. But it's so hard to explain because it's a feeling, right?
For me, it feels like I said, the expansion and the clicking,
coherence and harmony.
Yeah, but it also feels like what you said, like love and connectedness and grounded. It feels secure. That's also a really big thing.
Yeah.
It feels really stable.
Yeah, it feels like no one can say anything and make you believe something different.
Yeah, it's just a knowing.
But how do you know that's not delusion?
Well, then you go back to our philosophy, understanding and experience, and you need to have both of the same coin to truly understand existence. And I think feeling truth is an experience. And if your mind isn't able to comprehend why yet or how yet, then trust that you're right and dare to be wrong. So trust that your experience of feeling of truth was actually truth, and stay open to change your mind and to have it proven wrong. But up until it's proven wrong, you can believe or know in your being the thing that felt like truth.
You never know for sure.
You never know for sure. You never know for sure. Like even that's something that came up for us in your psychedelic experience, where you went like crazy, and that's a different podcast. There was this one psychedelic experience where he just had a bad trip, and he went into this loop of needing to find out whether there was something after death or there wasn't anything, because your ego was just dying off. You were starting to have an ego death, and that's something for another podcast. But you felt like you needed to know for sure in order to let go.
Yeah.
And something that got you out of it was repeating to you that you can come back to it. And even if you had an ego death right now, and even if you thought, I know it now, I know there's life after death, there like where this isn't the end, and I know it for sure, you still don't know for sure until you actually die.
Yes.
Like it can still be just a psychedelic trip.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like you never know for sure until you actually die.
Yeah.
And that's how it all goes.
And until then, you can just believe. That's the only thing. Because you only can believe something if you don't know it for sure.
Yeah.
And like in my psychedelic trip, an ego death is basically when your mind goes away and you just become one with the universe, and like all your identity, everything gets washed away and you become pure consciousness. And for that to happen, your ego needs to let go of the fact that your thoughts are who you are, your brain is who you are, your identity is who you are. And for me to be able to let go, for my brain, for my identity to let go, I needed to know that I wasn't fully gonna disappear when I let go. And that you can't know because that's in your brain. You can't know for sure until you actually let go. So that's like a self-repeating cycle. And like for me, it felt like I had the key right there to decide for whole humanity if there was something after death. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't possibly let go and find out that answer before I was absolutely sure that there was something.
It was an entire loop.
And I thought at that moment that I needed to decide it at that moment, because I wouldn't be able to get back to that point to find that answer for whole humanity. My brain needed to make this so incredibly important that, because the psychedelics were working were working my brain so much that my brain needed to find something so existential and for all of humanity to actually be able to keep myself in my mind.
Yeah.
So that was just and I was just going and going and going and going, and what you said, you can always come back to this. It's okay. You don't have to decide right now. You just kept repeating that.
Yeah. Yeah, and also later on that you will never know for certain.
Yeah.
Because at first I needed to repeat that one, and then later on I said that even if you would die in your ego, that you wouldn't know for certain until you died, and you had a whole laugh about it afterwards.
Like when that actually clicked for me, I don't have to decide it right now, and even if I would decide it right now, I wouldn't know for sure, definitely, because you would absolutely know it for sure if you die.
Yeah.
And that made me laugh so hard. And yeah, that like from the doom and gloom I was in that moment, it just all like all fucked up and just folded into. I was just folded and just stuck and contracted. And when that finally clicked, it just opened up and it just became a beautiful flower in my visuals, and it just wrapped into a beautiful harmonious flower. And then it was just that, oh, you let go, it's fine, you don't have to do it right now, it's okay.
Beautiful note to end it on, I think.
Yeah, it's a good note. So yeah, masculine, feminine,
triggers.
How do we do it? Triggers. And end it off with a beautiful psychedelic experience.
And don't take anything personally.
Don't take anything personally. It's all a reflection.
A lot of topics.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and taking the time to listen to this. And if there are any topics where you'd like us to talk about or to discuss with each other, then please let us know.
Leave a comment down below. And or if you're listening on Spotify, go to YouTube and leave a comment. Thank you.
Or go to our Instagram. Mine is Felicia Vaas.
And mine is Max VLAARHOVEN.
Van Laarhoven, for anyone
it's
watching.
Perfectly and so nice and Dutch.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching this Love Liberation production podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
You got